Graham's actually been a really good boy recently.
Oh,
He's
he's
been
a listener.
such a good boy. Yeah. He's been
Oh.
listening. He's been, oh, Suzanne! Get out of here, Susie.
I wondered what happened then. I just saw
not
a
your
load of
show.
hair. I thought, well, that's
Suzanne.
coming in fast.
It's not mine. So, no, Graham has been such a good boy recently. Suzanne's been a bit of an asshole, as you can see.
Oh, wow.
It's one or the other. We can never have a decent cat, like both of them together.
Never a whole cat.
Never. So I was having a dream, right? And it was about this woman that her child was missing, and people suspected that she had something to do with it. I don't know why I'm leaning into my mic. I can just move it up. Idiot. So people suspected that she had something to do with it. And then I was dreaming about this woman, and she was asleep. And she was talking in her sleep about her missing child. And she was like really sleep talking about a missing child. And I was like, oh, maybe she didn't do it because she's clearly missing her. And I think this stems because I was listening to the most recent Crime Junkie about the missing 4-year-old girl.
Oh, okay.
If you haven't listened to it, it's a great one.
I haven't yet, but I will.
It's a really good one. And Susie. And then as I was dreaming and she was sort of sleep talking, I realised that person was me. And I was sleep talking, and I kind of woke up a little bit, but I couldn't move.
Oh,
I woke up, my brain sort of woke up out of the dream, but I couldn't open my eyes, and I had my arms up under the pillow, but I couldn't move my arms. So I just kind of stayed there, and I shit you not, I felt something touch me. It was like a fingernail dragged down kind of the back of my arm, underneath my armpit, just dragged it down like this, and I was so scared. I've never been so scared in my entire life. And then I was then able to sort of move my arms and things. But oh my God, I was so scared. Josie woke up this morning.
Something's making you a believer. Something's like,
I guess so. My subconscious is like,
or not your subconscious, something else.
I think it was Josie.
Creepily dragging her fingernail down your back.
No, she would never touch me in the night.
Oh, honestly. Oh,
Susie!
Was it Susie or was it a weird entity?
Well, currently I've got Susie sat next to me, and then I've got Josie dead opposite me.
Hello. Hi. Hi. There she is. Well, some of her.
Some of her, yeah, just her nostrils. So yeah, that was my dream. Josie woke up this morning. She was like, "Oh, I've done a lovely sleep," and she was like, "How did you sleep?"
I've done a lovely sleep. Well done.
Lovely sleep. And I was like, I had such a bad nightmare, and it wasn't even a nightmare. I couldn't even say it was a nightmare. I was like, something touched me. She was like, I don't think it did it?
Oh, hi, Susie Bum.
She's really blocking my limelight today, isn't she?
Yeah, she wants a piece of it.
Anyways. Well, good morning.
Morning.
It is 9 a.m.
And it feels like 5 a.m.
Yeah, but it's such a lovely day out. It's really like glorious. It's the only way I can describe the morning.
Word. Yeah, it is a glorious morning. It's very sunny. I have been out on the front drive already this morning. Before we get going, I just want to say to Donna a massive thank you for buying us a coffee. And she actually bought us quite a large coffee as well, which was nice.
I think she knows that we needed large coffees.
Yes, she does. She does. Oh,
that was my kitchen chair.
I was going to say it was an appreciation toot, maybe.
That's why I needed the toilet roll.
Yes, poor thing. But no, thank you so much, Donna. Thank you for supporting us, and she is forever supportive of me anyway. But really appreciate the support, and it made us feel really good. And we've had some really lovely messages and words and things over the last week, haven't we? Which has
Yeah,
been
it's been
lovely.
really, really nice. I've been having the radiotherapy 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, and it's like a 4-hour round trip, and it's so exhausting.
Yeah.
And then I had chemo on top of that as well, so I've been really, really drained. And to get home and then see all the positive comments and feedback, so we've had people emailing and people messaging like with requests for different stories, and it's just so uplifting. And I even did like a thank you message on TikTok, because it's just nice to be nice.
It is nice to be nice.
So nice to be nice. And it really makes your day when somebody says something positive. You know, if you're listening to this, think to yourself, what can I do today that's kind? If you're in the McDonald's drive-through, pay for the person behind you. Or if you're in the Costa, pay for the person behind you. It might be £8, it might be £10, but in the grand scheme of things, that could really make that person stay.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you never know what people are going through, do you?
Yeah.
So it's just be nice. Just be nice. Just be nice.
Well, talking of being nice, part 2, the Villisca Axe Murders.
Not so nice.
Not so nice. So in part 1, we discussed the actual axe murders and what went on in the house, and we kind of just started getting into the haunting side of things, where these 5 paranormal investigators had turned up to the Villisca house. We left off in part 1 explaining about the 5 paranormal investigators, a group of young lads. So they'd met Johnny, who was the tour guide, and he was recounting some of the stories that other people had experienced in the house, and he'd told them about the paranormal investigator that had been goading this evil spirit, and he'd woken up with a knife in his chest. So we'll carry on from there. So Johnny's telling these guys all these different stories, and he said that one time when he was just checking the house, no one was staying there. He was just checking out the house, making sure it was all locked up, and that he was just checking it one evening, and as he walked in, he heard footsteps upstairs coming from the children's bedroom. And he had assumed that some kids had broken in. Just, you know, it's a very famous house. People know about it. So he'd assumed some kids had broken in and they were just having a laugh. So he decided to have a laugh back. And he thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to scare the absolute bejeebers out of them. And so while he's he can hear where the footsteps are coming from. So he sneaks up the stairs and he goes and hides in one of the cupboards upstairs. And he's waiting for these footsteps to come into this room. And he said when he was sure that the footsteps were in the room, he jumps out of this cupboard to scare these kids. And he said, and he jumped out of this cupboard and he was like, ah! But there was nobody there.
Oh.
And so he's had so many experiences where he's heard footsteps and things like that. And I think I said in the first part that he wasn't a believer in the paranormal, but he definitely is now.
Like
and he's sort of like me. Well, not 100% a believer.
You got podded in the night.
I did get prodded in the night. Gosh, that was terrifying. Yeah. So he checked the house over and there had been nobody in there. So these footsteps had obviously come from.
That's so creepy, isn't it? To hear footsteps can you imagine coming towards you? And then it sounds like someone's about to walk around the corner and you're like going to come face to face with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just no one.
Then there's no one there. And he said like he was absolutely sure that these footsteps were in this room, that he was going to scare these kids, but there just wasn't anybody there to scare. He got the scare.
yeah. Backfired.
So these 5 paranormal investigators, they're hearing all these stories, but that's why they're there. They want to experience this. So they're not deterred. And their purpose of coming into this house was that it was their hope to be able to find out who the killer was. So a lot of paranormal investigators also had done that. They wanted to communicate with these spirits and find out who had been the murderer that night. So they actually had 3 suspects that they thought that it could have been. And I think I went through it in the first half, and it was State Senator Frank Jones, Reverend George Kelly, or the third one that they thought it could be was a serial killer that went town to town on the train that went by the name Paul Miller, and it's spelled Mueller. So it's not spelled Miller, but it was pronounced Miller. And there's actually a book that's been written called The Man on the Train, and it's by a woman called Rachel McCarthy James. And she said she's 85% sure that she has solved the murders. And she believes that it's this guy, Paul Miller. And she details in this book why she believes that he's the killer. So these guys have gone into the house with these 3 suspects, trying to narrow down who it could be.
I think it was the Reverend.
Do you think it was the Reverend?
Yeah.
He does seem like a dodgy character. I don't think it was State Senator Frank Jones, because that, for a vendetta, that's a bit much, mate.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
A bit much.
Yeah. Went overboard on that.
It was a bit OTT. So just before Johnny leaves the guys, he's talking to them, and he's got his phone out, and he's showing them something on his phone. And you can watch the video, and you can see he's got his phone out, and all of a sudden, the battery dies on his phone. But he's not phased. He's not worried. He's just like, no, the battery died. Because he said it happens all the time. The electrical equipment in the house is always sapped. So, which is, the spirits get their power and they get their energy by sapping the electrical equipment. And he said that's how they get their energy.
I wonder if that's what's happening in this house.
That's why lights flicker and things like that, because they're draining the power.
When they put a meter on, they said there's a lot of electric being drained somewhere, but everything was off by the fuses. We were like, well, where the hell is it going then? I reckon a load of ghosts have plugged in.
And they're having a lovely time.
Yeah, our expense.
Yep. So what he does is he leaves this in the house, this like energy box. And when you turn it on, it just gives a massive boost of energy into the house so that the spirits can use this energy and then better communicate. So Johnny leaves the house, and these 5 guys, they're alone, and they begin to explain all of the equipment that they're going to use. And I am by no means a paranormal investigator or an expert on such. So I don't really understand what the equipment is or exactly how it works.
That's all right. We'll learn together.
We'll learn together. But they've got these motion detectors, which, you know, they go off if you know what a motion detector is. And they've got these active, so it's like a activity detector and a motion detector, and they go off if anything is stood within 5 meters of them.
Oh, I've seen those, like a cylinder. They're like a cylinder with a light in the middle.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and they was really noisy as well. There was a lot of light and there was a lot of noise. So they kind of placed them around the room. They started upstairs because that's where the 4 children and the 2 adults had been murdered, and that's where most of the activity was. So they start upstairs and they demonstrate how they would go off, and they sort of stand in front of them and they demonstrate what it would do if something is in front of them. And they had torches as well, just normal flashlights that you kind of twist the end and the light comes on, you twist it the other way, just battery operated torches, because again there's no electricity in the house at all, and it was very dark. So they've got torches. All the windows are obviously covered. The mirrors are covered, so there's no natural light in there at all. Pitch black. Just watching the video of the house and how dark it was and how eerie it was. The atmosphere. Just watching it was really scary. So I can't imagine actually being there, and I would have absolutely pooped my pants. So,
yes, but you don't believe.
No, I know, but when you go into a house that's supposedly haunted and it's really eerie, any noise that you hear, you're going to go, what was that? Was a ghost come out of here? Bye.
I think because of that, there is clearly part of you that does believe, because otherwise you wouldn't be scared.
I know, and I can't explain it. But
I
it's the
can.
same as what I said about that circle ring, and they said don't stand in it because you'll get ill because that's where all the witches burns. And I was like, I'm not standing in that, even though I don't believe it. I believe in bad energy. So I think if you go to an area where there's been a mass murder, same as the Auschwitz, I think the energy in Auschwitz, I've not been there, but I can imagine that it's not a nice energy, and you feel that because of what's happened there. And that's what I think about the house as well. I think that it would have this,
like what happened with Claire and Orador Suglan.
She
got sick.
Got this, that it's got this negative energy. So I do feel that if I went into this house, you kind of pick up on that, and it's a sad place to be. So they're all set up, and they place these motion detectors around the room, and they start trying to communicate with these spirits. And almost immediately, one of the motion detectors goes off in the doorway of the children's bedroom. So where the parents' bedroom was, the children's bedroom was adjacent to it. So in the doorway there between the children's and the parents, and it immediately goes off. And there's no one in the way. You can see that there's nobody in the way. All the lads are standing there. There's quite a few people filming and things, and you can see that there's nobody in the way. It's a very open doorway. They're all talking to these spirits, and they're saying things like they're kind of trying to figure out what spirit it is and what they want them to do. And they say to this spirit, if you want us to go into the other bedroom, then turn off the detector. And the detector goes off. So they're all sort of thinking, who could this be, and why do they want them to go into this other bedroom? And they're all talking amongst themselves, and then quite clearly on the camera you can hear the downstairs door slam shut. There's a really loud bang. So two of them immediately, they go downstairs to find out what door had slammed, because they were all quite sure the doors were closed. So they wouldn't have left any doors. When Johnny left, he closed the doors. They all closed the doors, and they kind of went off upstairs. So they go to the front door, which is the most obvious that it could have been. And they're trying to open it and close it and slam it to try and recreate the sound. But they can't. You can hear it on the camera that it's not that door that slammed. So they don't think that it was the front door. So then just as they're sort of trying to figure out what it could be, the guys that are left upstairs, they shout down, and they say, are you coming up? Because they could hear footsteps coming up the stairs. And then the guys downstairs are like, no, we're not. We're downstairs. We haven't come up. And they're like, are you sure nobody's come up? We heard somebody come up the stairs. But nobody had. So they're all kind of freaking out a little bit. But then they all
seems to be very prominent in this house.
Was very prominent. Yeah, footsteps was very prominent in the logbook. Well, the house is obviously, it's a very old house, and it's incredibly noisy. It's very creaky. You go up the stairs and it's really, really loud. So everybody has kind of said before, how did this killer go up the stairs without alerting anybody? Because it's so loud. And what they think it was because the house lived near a train track.
The house lived near
That's
where
the house lives. The house lives there. So the house was near this train track. And as these guys are in the house, the train goes past, and they all say that would muffle the sound of footsteps. So I think footsteps played a really big part in who had done it and how they'd done it, because the house was so noisy. So you could hear the footsteps everywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, the parents would be the only people that were maybe suspicious of hearing footsteps in the night. The children wouldn't be, would they? They'd, I mean, ours wouldn't. Yeah. Ours wouldn't be suspicious of movement or noise in the house, because they would just assume that it's one of us. Yeah.
And I think as well, if you live near a train track, then you kind of eventually drown out that noise, don't you?
Yeah.
And you don't hear it. So they're used to hearing noises in the night and then sleeping through it.
But I mean, anyways, if he went for the adults first, whoever did it went back, didn't they? Because of the shoe and the blood in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So maybe he just went straight to the parents' room.
So that's what he done. The parents were the first ones who went straight upstairs into the parents. He done them first, went into the children's, done the 4 of them, went down, done the other 2, then went back up and done the process again.
Oh God.
It's a bit of overkill. So anyways, so the the two that were downstairs, they eventually come upstairs. So they're all back together. And then they go into the main bedroom where this spirit had said that they wanted them to be. So it was Josiah and Sarah's bedroom where they'd been murdered. And it's a very small house. It's a very small bedroom. So there is a bed that's it's bigger than a single, but not quite as big as a double. And it's up against the side wall on the right-hand side. And then there's a very small bit of floor space next to the bed. And then there is a dresser up against the other side of the wall. So based on the gouge marks in the ceiling, you could actually see where the killer would have stood. So he would have stood not sort of at the end of the bed and then killed them. He would have come round to the side, in between the dresser and the bed where there was that small bit of floor space, and then done it from there. You can see the axe marks in the wall. So they set up the motion detector on that bit of floor in between the bed and the dresser. And then they kind of step back towards the end of the bed. And as they're talking, this motion detector is going off and then stopping and then going off again and then stopping and then going off again and then stopping, as if someone was swinging an axe.
Oh God.
And you can see it clear as day that it's kind of they mimic the motions as well. When this detector is going on and off, they mimic the motions, and it's kind of, there's no movement and then there's movement. And then it goes no movement and then there's movement.
Oh.
And so what they're saying is that I can't remember, did we discuss it in the first episode about the house being stuck in a loop?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what they think is happening, is that it's kind of just playing over and over and over again.
It's not like someone reliving it, is it? It's just an energy.
Yeah,
just like
an echo.
An energy loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's hideous, isn't it?
So they're trying to communicate with this spirit, or whatever's in the room, and they're sort of asking it loads of questions, and they're asking for it to show them signs that this spirit's the killer or the evil spirit in the house. And the torch that's on the bedside cabinet they're kind of looking by just goes off. There's nobody touching it at all. The torch just goes off, and they're all freaking out. And then the light comes back on, and it's one of those twisty torches. It's not like, it's just a battery operated twisty little torch. And then so the light comes back on, and they say again, if you're the killer, then show us a sign. Make the torch go out. And it goes out again. And then it comes back on. So while they're trying to set up their EVP, which is the electronic voice phenomenon, they notice that the battery has died. So they're all freaking out. They're all going, but we changed the batteries. We always put fresh batteries in when we go to a house. So they actually had to leave the house to go and get more batteries for their equipment, and then come back again.
I'd volunteer for that.
I'll
go.
So when they got back to the house, they're all batteried up, they went to the children's bedroom upstairs, and they set up their EVP with someone listening to it. So the EVP, if you just leave it playing or leave it recording, it will pick up the echoes of people or spirits talking. But there's something called the Estes method, and it is where the EVP is on and someone is plugged into it with their headphones on, and they're blindfolded. And it's so that you can isolate that person's senses, and there's no auxiliary information coming through from anywhere else. All they are hearing is what is coming through on this EVP. So they've got their blindfold on, they've got their earphones on, and the other guys in the room are asking the spirit questions, and what they're hoping is that it answers and it gets picked up on the EVP, and then the guy wearing the earphones repeats that information. So the guy with the headphones on has got no idea of the questions that are being asked. He can't literally hear or see anything apart from this staticky white noise that is coming from this.
essentially they're like a human speaker.
Conduit. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're just repeating anything they hear.
Yep. So, and it's just sort of like random words that they kind of repeat, and sometimes it's nonsense, and sometimes it's generally, you know, it kind of coincides with the questions that they've asked. So like I say, he's got no idea of the questions that are being asked, or whether what he's saying makes sense at all. He's just hearing what's being said on this EVP and then just repeating it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just singular words. A lot of the times it's just singular words. But in this case, there were like sentences coming through. Sometimes there were words, but sometimes there were sentences. And he's, honestly, if you watch it, it's the creepiest thing. And he's blindfolded and he's, you know, he can't see anything. He's just listening. He's got his head down and he's just saying, run. I had to run.
Oh.
It was worth it. He was just repeating these words. So meanwhile, while he's repeating these words, the other guys are like trying to say, why did you run? What was worth it? They're trying to communicate with this spirit to see whether it was the killer, to see who the killer was, why they killed the family. So they're trying to just establish, you know, what's gone on in the house. So the guy on the EVP, he's sitting there and he just goes, train tracks enabled me to.
Oh.
So, and like I say, that was what they had been speaking about, was that how had this killer got around the house without waking anybody up? And they hadn't necessarily asked that question. They'd been talking amongst themselves downstairs, you know, hours previously. Yeah. And it clear as day, it comes out, train tracks enabled me to. So when that comes over, they immediately thought that it was an answer to what they'd questioned earlier. So they asked the spirits as well if they had drained the batteries on their devices. So it was quite difficult to kind of put out everything that was being said, because there's a lot of questions that they ask the spirits, and sometimes they don't get an answer and things. But one of the questions that they said was, are you draining the batteries from our equipment? And the reply that comes back says, it allows for greater.
What?
So what they're saying is that
Terror.
The greater communication, it allows for him to be able to communicate better, because he's taking this energy from the batteries. So it's quite draining for this person to be in this you know, with the headphones and the like listening to this EVP. It's quite draining. So they change over the person that's using it. So another guy, he goes and sits with this EVP, and he sits in the alcove in the wall at one end of the children's bed. Do you remember I spoke about that paranormal investigator that had been in the children's bedroom and he'd been goading this evil spirit?
And he got
then
stabbed.
It ended up with a knife in his chest. So that's where it was. So he'd been sitting on the children's bed, looking out towards where this alcove was. It was at the end of the children's bed, and it was just like a cutout in the wall, which I'm guessing they would use as like a wardrobe space. So that's where this guy goes and sits with the EVP, and he's in complete darkness and he can't see anything, and all he can hear is this white noise. And the questions start again, and they're asking these questions. They're trying to find out who the killer is. They ask if it is the Reverend or if it's Paul. And the spirit responds, and he says, didn't you guys talk about this at the beginning?
Oh.
So it's almost as if
he's stroppy.
He's playing with them. But remember, this guy's got no idea what questions are being asked. He's just repeating what he's hearing.
Yeah.
And at the same time that this is going on, and this poor guy is sitting in this little wardrobe space, there's a spirit detector, one of those little like motion detectors, in the closet behind this guy.
No, absolutely not. Would I ever do that?
I think I couldn't find out, right? They called it a cat toy. And I couldn't find out whether it was specifically a paranormal thing that is used, or if it's genuinely a cat toy. I think it is genuinely a cat toy, and that it lights up when it's touched. So if a cat was to bat it, it would light up. So they use this. And so if obviously a spirit goes near it or a spirit touches it, it then lights up. So there's one of these in the closet behind this guy, and it goes off. So you can watch it, and I was sitting there watching it, feeling so bad for this guy. He's got no idea that it's going off, and he's just sat in this closet, with the blindfold on, and this thing is going off. And they ask the spirit if he's nearby, and on the EVP, the guy says, "Behind."
Oh,
and honestly, this
good
poor guy, he's got no idea what's going on.
It's like a little sacrificial lamb or something, isn't he?
Yeah,
Being chucked in the cupboard.
Yeah, but he's got no idea, and he's got no idea what's being asked. So he doesn't know that they've asked him, "Are you behind? Are you behind this guy?"
Are you behind
He's just
him?
like, yeah, absolutely. So lastly, they ask who the killer is, and then the spirit says, "I'm the Reverend."
Oh,
As clear as day, he says, and as soon as he's repeated the words, as soon as this guy repeats, "I'm the Reverend," he takes his blindfold off and his headphones, and he's like, oh my god, did you hear that? Did you know? And they're all freaking out because now they think that they've solved who the murder was, and they feel like that is justification enough to know that actually it was the Reverend that had killed the family.
I knew it.
But no one will ever know. No one will ever know who killed the family. And it is just speculation based on these paranormal investigators. And they go in and they speak to the spirits. And
it's super sad that they didn't get justice. Or at least, I mean, it's always sad when you never find out who it is that done these brutal, heinous things. But
yeah, as if it wasn't bad enough. It's 1912 and they've got no way of doing forensic testing or anything like that. So it could have been a nomad that had gone to the house randomly, saw the axe, picked it up and thought, oh, you know what I'll do. But what most people are saying is that there's an evil spirit in that house and that it had lured the Reverend to the axe and then spoke to the Reverend. And like I say, in the when he originally confessed, he said that this spirit had said to him, slay or kill utterly, kill utterly. And then when the paranormal investigators go in, they can feel this evil spirit. So they know that there's the spirit of the kids in there and everything else, but they can also feel this evil spirit. So they feel like that is what drove the murders to happen. But we'll never know. And that is the story of the haunting of the Villisca Axe murders. Now, you all know that I'm very, very skeptical indeed. But when I was watching this, I couldn't pick it apart. You know, there's so many documents on TV and of the paranormal investigators going into the house, and it's so exaggerated and it's so over the top. I watched something and there was like a demon slayer in there, and it was just so over the top, and it makes it unbelievable.
I know,
because of what they're doing.
I struggle with the same thing when it's too overly dramatic.
Yeah, it was so dramatic.
It makes me think, oh, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just over dramatized.
Yeah.
But the footage and the noises and just everything that had happened on this video just made it very difficult for me to pick it apart and for me to go, well, actually, it probably was this or it could have been that.
Yeah.
So I don't know where my head is at. I can't rationally justify it.
I do believe in these things. I'm not massively skeptical unless I feel like I need to be, you know, like if something's, like you say, really dramatized and over the top, it does kind of make me step back a bit and think, if these things are real, why would you need to add all that drama and having that realization that there is actually a spirit present and potentially an evil spirit present would be terrifying enough as it is.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're dramatizing it, it does make me then think, well, maybe there isn't anything to it this time. But there's a lot of things with the Villisca house that
It's not dramatized, and like I said, they don't advertise it really. There's a website where obviously you can go and you can book and things like that, but they don't advertise it as, you know, anything other than what it is. And that the house kind of speaks for itself. It's been going for God knows how, like 20 odd, well, like 30 odd years or something. And it's booked up a year in advance, and that is just based on the house itself and people's experience of the house, and then word of mouth from that. And not anything else. I think there is a TV. There was something filmed there for a TV show.
For whoever's listening, if you want to send me and Sarah to Iowa to go to the Villisca house, make a video, do recordings, I'll buy an EVP, whatever you want. But if you want to do that, buy us a coffee and we'll go. It's
going to cost more than a coffee.
Well, do you know what? I was thinking the other day, if everybody that listens to our episodes, and particularly TikTok followers, if they all said, I'm just going to donate £1, I'm just going to donate £1, we'd have loads of money. We'd be able to go to
Iowa and
multiple locations all over the place. And yeah, when I was sitting out in the middle of nowhere the other day and it was freezing cold, and I was so cold and tired and scared because I was in the middle of nowhere on my own. And I thought, do you know what? I would love to do this podcast full time. I would absolutely love to do it. So if anyone that's listening feels the same and they want us to keep doing this podcast, buy us a coffee, buy us 2 coffees.
We've actually got there's a link in it that is always in the footnotes of the episode, where you can donate or you can buy us a coffee. And we will obviously give you much love and a massive shout out, because we do love doing these stories, and it's great fun for us to research, and we do want to be able to go and visit these areas that we're speaking about. I mean,
definitely,
for me to be able to experience a paranormal house like this, I'm not going to be able to then not believe.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No, it would be it would be an absolute dream come true if we could do this full time. And the thing is, I feel like we're only doing this to like 10% of our capabilities at the moment, because we don't have time to do any more. Do you know what I mean? So I was just talking about me, really.
Yeah. But we've had some requests as well for other stories to do, so keep them coming. We will get around to doing them all. We've got this is our second 2-parter, which we love doing.
I know what I'm doing on my next story as well.
I can't wait to hear it.
It's a spooky one. It's not true crime. I'm gonna just I need to stay away from true crime stuff for a little bit.
Yeah, I've had a request as well. Somebody wants you to do another UFO story.
I was gonna do a UFO story on my next story, but I've actually, I'm doing something a little bit creepy, hauntingy, that kind of thing. But it's cool. It's on the edge of, will it be all right or won't it be all right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's quite a famous one as well. So I think quite a few of our listeners will have known the story. They'll be familiar with it. But I did lots of research and put it all together. So that'll be interesting. I'll be really super interested to see what you think about it as well.
Me too. I can't wait. If you have enjoyed listening to our episodes, make sure you rate us and leave us a review on whatever platform you are listening.
We absolutely love hearing from you guys. So you can also help support our show by donating to our Buy Me a Coffee link. We will make sure that you get a massive shout out and a big thank you in our next week's episode.
You can also follow us on social media. at Perplexed Podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and if you want to see more videos and blooper reels, subscribe to our TikTok and YouTube channels.
You can also email us your stories at perplexedpodcasts@gmail.com.
And you can find all the relevant links in the episode descriptions. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.